I thought I'd do something that is a bit of fun this morning, which is oops, the postmaster got it wrong. Some of the great rarities of philately across the world, but especially in Sarawak, is where someone got it wrong. And I'll just run through a few items just to elicit some response, hopefully. I mean, the earliest case of someone getting it wrong, of course, is the Office of Registry Council. Now, there's only 3 covers known of this, and we can only surmise what happened. What I believe happened is there was some very young officer of the Raja sitting in the office with 2 or 3 various hand stamps. One is the Post Office Sarawak to cancel stamps, and one was the Office of Registry to cancel banknotes and land registry documents. And one can only surmise that the night before, or he had a few to drink in the Raja's presence, suffering from a hangover the next day, picked up the wrong hand stamp, and Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt. Interesting that 2 of the covers were posted on the same day, one to Miss Burdett Coots and the other one to her friend, you see, and Miss Brown. Now, I never understood, and perhaps someone might be able to help me, why did he always write 2 letters, one to Burdett Coots and one to Miss Brown, considering, I'm not sure whether they lived together, but one can assume they did because they used to go to the same address. He always used to write 2 letters, so they got one each to read. So here is a case of getting it wrong. The banknote on the right, which is horrible looking, but it is the earliest known banknote of Sarawak. And believe it or not, that horrible piece of paper on the right is more valuable than the cover on the left. Now, here's a case of the Office of Registry Council being used correctly on a land document dated the 9th of June, 1879. Interesting, the banknote, it's been put on very properly. The land registry document, it's been put on very properly, but over the stamp, it looks very smudged, which just can only add weight to my hypothesis that the young officer that was putting this on was not feeling very well that morning. Now we come to the bogus cover. Now, for years, people thought this cover was right. I've written at length in the Sarawak Journal about this. I got offered, this cover was in the Miri sale, and they wanted £50,000 for it in the Miri sale. You won't be surprised to know that it didn't sell. A few years ago, I was offered it by David Feldman for £50,000 again. It may not surprise you to know that I turned him down. However, it did sell to someone, and someone in America has paid over £20,000 for this cover. The thing is, it's so wrong. The 3 cents, 1869 3 cents, was invalidated on the 31st of March 1871, which was 18 years earlier than this cover was made. The registration cachet and the circular cancellation show the date of 4th of August 1899, which is a Sunday, and I very much doubt if a post office in Sarawak or an officer would be working on a Sunday, because church was very important in those days. The cover's back stamped Singapore 6th of August, just 2 days later, which in those days, 2 days to get from Sarawak and Singapore bears some belief. It has no straight stamps on it, which should have been done, as Sarawak didn't join the UPU until 1897. And so one would have expected the counter clerk, if it was correct, to have noticed the invalidated issue, the lack of straight stamps, and should have slapped a great big T on it. Completely and utterly made up, in my opinion. Okay. Lastly, but not leastly, the official rate from Sarawak to Singapore was 3 cents, registration 6 cents, And the rate from Singapore to Germany via Marseille at that time was 8 cents, making a total of 17 cents. Again, wrong rate, no tax marks, complete mistake or bogus. Now, a few covers, lack of correct Sarawak stamps. Upon cessation of the use of stamps of East India, and up to 1st of July 1897, when Sarawak joined the Postal Union, stamps of the Straits settlements should have been used in conjunction with those of Sarawak, on mail for destinations beyond Singapore. Stocks of these stamps were kept in Sarawak for this purpose. We know that, Straits stamps were kept there. And on very, very rare occasions, and this is one of them, no Sarawak stamps were used. And this newspaper wrapper shows the 2 cents newspaper rate from April the 1st, 1877, when Straits joined the UPU. So no, to UK, no Sarawak stamps. Another one, as from February the 1st, 1892, the Gazette announced that the newspaper and printed papers rate for all countries should be reduced to 1 cent. In 1894, there were 1 cent stamps of Sarawak, but in this case, they used a straight stamp to go to France. Again, a mistake, no use of the correct stamps. And one of my favourite covers in the whole of my collection is this. Now, this is a British 3 cent stamp used from Sarawak on 14th of October 1892. It was cancelled with the Sarawak Dispatch cancelled, dating the 14th of October 1892. And as I said, interesting, the senders put a 3 pence stamp on the cover, which equates at that time to 8 cents, which would have been the correct mail rate to the UK at that time, which would have been 3 cents Sarawak plus 5 cents straight stamps. However, it did go through the mail system without penalty. It's back stamped Singapore 17th of October 1892. And as you can see, the adhesive is cancelled with a London receiving mark, 14th of November 1892. It has a Cambridge receiving mark on the same date. And it was addressed to John Neville Keynes, who actually was an economist and lecturer in moral sciences at the University of Cambridge. Now, John Keynes is not so famous, but his son is. Now, John Keynes married Florence Ada Brown, who became the mayor of Cambridge. What's really interesting is John Keynes was the father of John Maynard Keynes, the famous economist, who at that particular time would have only been 9 years old. He's best known for his proposal that when national economies suffer a downturn, government should borrow and spend money to boost economic activity. Does that sound familiar, guys? Part of the proceeds of the resulting economic growth should then be used to repay the debt. This was advocated by the last socialist government in this country, and a political point, it's being advocated at the moment by our current government. Now, why would that stamp be used? The only thing I can surmise, and I haven't been able to determine whether a British ship was actually in Sarawak at the time, but British ships in more modern times were allowed to use British stamps and could go through the mail system. And I'm only sort of, again, an assumption that this may have been posted from a British ship by a British officer and then put through the Sarawak postal system. Nevertheless, a strange item and one that I rather like. Now, mistakes again. A postal card. Funnily enough that Roger and I have had a correspondence about this only this week. This, on 1st of December 1899, the postage rate for overseas postcards was increased to 4 cents. And this was published in the Sarawak Gazette, notification 61. To bridge that gap until the new 4 cent cards could be ordered and delivered, the existing 3 cents postal card was surcharged with 4 cents. These cards were officially put on sale on the 1st of November 1st of December 1899, when the new rate came into force. But obviously this card was sold very early, erroneously, by the postmaster. If you note the little V in the top left-hand corner, I have 2 of these, or I did. I sold one on eBay a couple of weeks ago. So 5 were sent by this one chap, because all the handwriting's exactly the same. Roger has another one dated that date. I also have one from Sedong on the 29th of November 1899. So I can only surmise that these cards were put out to the post offices and were sold erroneously to some people by the postmaster, but they should not have been used until the 1st of December 1899.
Simon,
yeah.
The writing on mine is the same as the writing on yours, but it's a different addressee,
yeah.
but also in Singapore.
Which makes me think that one chap, whoever that chap was, had a little batch of these postcards and wrote them early.
Well, in their original 3-cent form, they would have been in a paper folder,
yeah.
a wrapper.
Yeah.
They would have had to have taken them out of the wrapper to do the overprinting.
Yeah. But
yeah.
I've only ever seen, and I've got you know, records of Steve Schumann. I've only ever seen those ones that I have, and up to, you know, 5 others, all from the same guy, and the one that you had, which is a new one to me, which I've taken a copy of, all dated the same date, 12th of November. The Sedong one, you can argue, dated 29th of November, you can argue that they would have been sent to outstations early, which would explain why the Sedong one's only a couple of days early. But these one are a mystery to me. The handwriting does look very similar to the chap that used to send postcards from the Sarawak Museum. Now, it may be that he had a batch of them for pre-printing with, you know, Sarawak Museum stuff on the back. But again, only assumptions.
Yes, mine's 4 days later. Mine's
16th. Yeah. Very nice, though, to get them that early. But again, a postmaster error. Then we come to back on type 1. Now, one of the rarest postmarks of Sarawak, it is the only known example. This is in my collection. It appears to be a composite. Bakong is in serif capitals, and the date's been applied by a rubber stamp, a bit like a John Bull printing press, on the back of the back flap of a registered envelope. It's used here as an arrival mark. 2 very bad forgeries are known. The main fault is that the date is earlier than the date upon which the stamps on the cover were issued. This is J.C. Swain illustrated this in an article in Stamp Lover in February 1936, which gives it its provenance. Marudi type 11. Now this, on August the 21st, now bear in mind this date, on August the 21st, 1921, the cashier of the Sarawak Oilfields Limited, wishing to dispatch a mail after the post office had closed, franked the correspondence and added a manuscript cancellation which read, Miri, August the 1st, 1921. The mail, which left at 2 AM, was carried in the company's own boat, and the postal officials could do nothing to stop its dispatch. The authenticity of this information is vouched for by a letter or a memo dated August the 31st, 1921, from the postmaster at Bintulu, a guy called Mr. Cottrell, giving details in response to an inquiry. Now, very fortunately, besides having that cancel, I also have the memo.
One is March the 20th born.
Okay, and so this memo reads, in reply to your letter 2721 of 24th instant, I beg to inform you that inquiries of elicited information, the stamps returned by you, now herewith, what lovely language, were cancelled by the cashier of the Sarawak Oilfields Limited, who is understood to have done this himself, as these offices were closed and the mail was leaving at 2. The company's own boat carried the mail, and it would appear that nothing further could be done. So, cancel and provenance. One cannot get any better than that. If this was on an antiques roadshow, they'd go mad that you need the provenance to prove what happened, and here it is. The Lat Type 4. We know that the Lat did not get a cancel straight after the war, and the Postmaster of the Lat started manuscript cancelling stamps that were leaving. This particular cover that on the right is quite nice because it has a Cebu liner type, which was used as a forwarding cancel. On the left, if anybody in Kuching can tell me what that says in Chinese, it's probably the addressee, whoever the addressee was. I'd be very grateful. And here is a letter from the Postmaster of the Lat saying that, and this is dated 11th of February 1947, keep that date in your mind, saying, I've received your letter 17th of December 46, and I could not exactly fulfill your request, as I'm doubting whether you do need the enclosed postal notices, forms, and other letter in Malay language. It was a practice to cancel all postal stamps with ink during Japanese occupation, i.e. between the 25th of December 41 to 15th of October 45, September 45, during which Jap stamps were also used and cancelled the same way, as our postal marks and other instruments were taken away by then. Even to this day, we're using this sort of cancellation and no postmarks are available. The same stamps were used during BMA dated 16th of September 45 to 31st of March 46, except the stamps were marked with a red BMA. He goes on to say our post office here had not been in direct control by Japs, and therefore all stamps of local letters were cancelled by ink by clerk in charge. Japs were very seldom visited to this small district, and all postal affairs were informed by circulars and letters in remains Malay. Now, he wrote that 11th of February 47. I have that letter in my collection. I do know that the envelope that carried that letter sits in Richard Garbutt's collection. And one day I hope to put the two together. Richard has a photocopy of this for his collection, obviously. Now, this is dated 11th of February 47. This cover is May 1947, and you can see they still haven't received the cancel. What's lovely about this, it's to Donald Castle, who was one of the original members of the Sarawak Specialist Society. It's an airmail registered letter, and it bears stamps the value of $2, which is absolutely correct. Lots of them, but all cancelled individually. And also the earliest known use of the Lat Type 2 registration cachet. We couldn't do this little presentation without Marudi labels, could we? So here's two Marudi labels from my collection, a top copy and a bottom copy. We know why these were produced because of the affidavit signed by C.B. Murray. And again, I'm very happy to be the owner of this affidavit. The original affidavit sits in my collection. It's on A3, so I've sort of reduced it for here. And this is the whole story by C.B. Murray, that he arrived at Marudi by a Royal Air Force Catalina as a representative of the British Borneo Civil Affairs Unit and took over the administration, blah, blah, blah. It was obvious that there was a keen demand from the local population for the early re-establishment of postal services. In the first instance, outgoing mail was dispatched in sacks by service aircraft, but no charge was made for postage, as the mail was not postmarked. Now, that's an interesting note. We made requests to headquarters for a supply of postage stamps, and these were not supplied. It was therefore decided to make the stamps locally, and these are now called Marudi Labels. Good typing paper was strictly limited, so the wireless operator typed 2 denominations and the triplicate copy in old Treasury cash books, and each label was initialed by me. Both of these are 15 cents. Nobody has ever seen another value apart from the 15 cents. And he does actually say that there were 2 values, but no, I said nobody's ever seen them. I cannot recall all details, but 2 or 3 mails, each of several bags, were dispatched to Labuan, containing letters addressed to various countries in the East, and each carried the Marudi postmark. There's only 11 or 12 of these left in existence. And so, who knows, one day a Marudi label on cover might appear. Wouldn't that be good? Now, UPU errors of postmark. The UPU stamps were issued on the 10th of October, 1949. And this particular cover is dated the 10th of September, 1949. And according to Alan Dant at the time, the district officer from Bow happened to be in the office of Mr. Dant, and seeing a couple of covers on his desk, which had just arrived from Binatang, he asked if he might have one in exchange from a first day cover from his own station. Now, almost immediately after leaving the office, he popped in again and said, "Do you know, Dant, looking at this postmark, I believe I've forgotten to change the month in the barrel date stamp." And he had. Apparently, he regarded it as his own job at the end of each month to change the month plug in the date stamp, and just admitted to do it at the end of September. It was a pure mistake without the slightest suggestion of any evil philatelic event. And so Bow will go down in philatelic history too, with UPU stamps postmarked September the 10th. Although in point of fact, none, of course, made their appearance until October the 10th. It's not known how many of these covers are in existence, for apart from the first day, nearly a fortnight elapsed before the error was discovered in Dant's office. However, there's normally very little ordinary postal correspondence through that Bow office at the time. And then we get to the Simonjan cover. Again, cancelled 21st of September 1949. The stamp was issued on the 10th of October 49. So how did this happen? In order to secure release of all post offices on October the 10th, as on any other given date, supplies of stamps were sent out in advance to all up-country postmasters, with very strict instructions not to sell before October the 10th. You can imagine the consternation in Kuching when a bag of mail arrived from the tiny office in Simonjan late in September with 5 letters bearing the 8 cents UPU. Now, this is one of the few post offices which is not in wireless communication with Kuching, and all the PMG could do was write an immediate letter and wait for the first boat back to Simonjan, telling the local postmaster exactly what he thought of him for getting it wrong, and given an approximate idea of what would happen in Whitehall if the news ever reached those august portals. The PMG was equal to the occasion. This is the PMG in Kuching. However, and with commendable promptness and equally commendable disregard for the legal niceties of his position, he opened all 5 offending letters. He abstracted their contents and sent them on their legitimate business in fresh OPS envelopes. So none of the letters was in fact in any sense the word philatelic, and all were genuine mistakes. The mails from Simonjan were then carefully watched, and as all mail from that office must pass through Kuching, it is certain that these 5 covers, all dated 21st of September, are the only ones in existence. Now, we get to the interesting part of the story. That same PMG, a very worthy official and a very friendly soul, in due course presented a cover to each of the 4 lucky folk in Kuching, sending the 5th to Sir Charles Clarke, the previous governor of Sarawak. The 4 Kuching representatives who got a cover were all members of the Sarawak Society, the original Sarawak Society. So all 4 covers, presumably, still exist. Can you just imagine? You're opening someone's letter, put them in an OPS envelope, and then give the covers away to your philatelic mates. I think that's brilliant. And the another one, this is the one that I have discovered. This is a very strange one indeed. Now, this is cancelled Trusan, September the 9th, 49, a whole month before the stamp was issued. There could be 2 reasons for this, and this, of course, is just assumptions. The enclosure, as you can see from the cover, says it's a tender document. And it's common practice now, and may have been then, that when asking for tenders, they have to be in by a certain date. So therefore, many tenders are dated on the date of sending to avoid any ambiguity. And it's also very common to date mark them on receipt, again, to avoid ambiguity during a procurement process. So this tender could have been sent from an official officer in Trusan who used the new stamps erroneously and stamped them early, thinking that the tender would not be opened until after the date of issue of stamps, or similarly stamped on receipt. In this case, as the tender was sent to the resident at Limbang, I favour the former idea. Nevertheless, a new discovery by me and a unique cancelling of this stamp some 31 days before its official issue. Now, what is the greatest mistake of all postmasters in the history of Sarawak philately? The greatest mistake, of course, is, drum roll, the 1895 issue. Now, the original order for stamps was sent on the 1st of March, and it was sent in error by the acting treasurer of Sarawak, who can only, in my view, made the mistake as a result of Perkins Bacon producing the banknotes for Sarawak. We now know that the order was placed in error because the treasurer was out the country. The treasurer, Charles Pearce, was out the country at the time. The original order was sent by Reginald Audrey, and when the treasurer knew what had happened, he sent the following letter. The order for the stamps, as per the acting treasurer's letter, was sent in error, and I have to apologise for the same. However, you can just imagine Perkins Bacon delight when they got this order. Now, the normal process is for them to produce die proofs, send them back out to Sarawak for them to be approved. Once they're approved, they came back and they got on with the printing. Perkins Bacon never did this. They immediately got to work on it, never sent anything out to Sarawak, produced the stamps, and asked for their money. So good on them, I say, because it's one of the nicest issues of Sarawak stamps. No design been submitted for approval, the die had been engraved and the printing plate almost completed. So the printer suggested that the ought to be completed and the whole issue could be disposed of to collectors at a good profit. That didn't happen. The stamps went back to Sarawak on November the 16th on the P&O steamer Ballarat, together with the invoice counting of £90, 5 shillings and 3pence. This is the 1 cent hand-painted essay. That design wasn't used for the 1 cent because they didn't produce any 1 cent, but they did use that design for the 4 cents. Now, when the invoice came in for £90, 5 shillings and 3pence, the treasurer obviously had to pay it. And he sent a letter and a cheque off to James Heath, the managing director of Perkins Bacon. Now, this cover's dated February the 14th, 1895, so it's the earliest known use of the 1895 issue on cover. It's addressed, as I said, to the managing director of Perkins Bacon Limited. And what's wonderful is that the Perkins Bacon archives sit in the Royal Philatelic Society. So here's a copy of the letter from the Royal's archives, basically saying, I'm in receipt of your letter with the stamps. The stamps arrived last steamer. I have pleasure in sending you a cheque payable on the Borneo Company Limited for the whole amount. So there's the letter that would have been in that envelope. And what's even more exciting, also in the Royal Archives, is a copy of the cheque. And there's a copy of the cheque that was enclosed in that letter, paid on the Borneo Company Limited, which the Raja was one of the directors of. We're not talking about the Borneo Company, North Borneo Company Limited. It's a separate company that was in Sarawak, the Borneo Company Limited. So a quick bit of fun, running through some of the major errors of Sarawak caused by mistakes by postmasters, and that is the end.
Okay.
Splendid. Thank you for that.
Very impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Any questions? Could anybody in Kuching please tell me who that is?
Yeah, we'll decipher for you. This one is Sarawak. This is Sarawak. Or Sarawak is a different type of description of Sarawak. I'll write an email to you, explain this is Sarawak.
Yeah, the red band cover, yeah.
Yeah, and then this one is Zhen Chang. Zhen Chang is the name of the shop, Zhen Chang. And then Da Bao Hao means we always salutations, your normal customer to say that your big company, esteem company, all right? And then from the sender, Dala. Yeah, so Chop Jing, you can see the pronunciation. Jing Chan is here. Sorry, I lost the image. You see the pronunciation. Jing Chang is the same as Zhen Chang. The actual Zhen Chang.
It's more this one. It's more the red band cover.
This is Kuching, Tabuan, Tabuan Road, Semdabi. Kuching, Tabuan Road, Semdabi, sent out, and this one is the senders, I think, to the Kuching. So to Dalat, from Dalat to Kuching, this is the addressee.
Yeah,
address Kuching. We'll give you an email on this. We'll check it out.
I think that the Semdabi house at Tabuan Road.
It's a mention. It's a mention.
Yeah, I'll send it. Daisy, if to hear you all, I'll send it to you. Very interesting. Talk about mistakes. I bought a very early Pakabo, first day Pakabo cover on eBay last night.
Congratulations.
The reason I bought it, besides it being an early Pakabo, but it was addressed to Harbury Hon on the 2nd of November 1947, which is quite interesting considering he died in February 1947.
Yeah, we show that envelope. It is of that cover is actually addressed to Harbury Hon.
Yeah.
It could be himself because the calligraphy apparently is that of the Harbury Hon himself.
Yeah.
And then there's a two word at the lower corner of that red band cover. 内详 means detail inside. I'll elaborate for you in my email to you. If you that cover actually is written by himself to himself actually. Like,
well, before he died, he was dead 8 months.
Something like that. Around that day, he passed away in 1947. Around that year, I don't know.
He passed away in February 1947. And the cover's November 1947. I thought Harbury Hon was a very clever chap, but writing from the grave. That's the only reason I bought it. Yeah. Anyway, any other questions, please?
I've got a little add-on here for you, Simon.
Okay.
The 4 cents overprinted postcard.
Yeah.
To Schmidt, R. Schmidt Esquire. I've got one as well, and mine has got a Roman 9 in the corner.
Okay, so it could be more than 5 then.
Yeah.
And is it dated the same date, 12th of November?
Yeah, and November the November the 17th, Singapore receiver as well.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as yours, except the receiver's in the bottom left-hand corner, and it's got IX in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there was quite a few of them. Has yours got anything on the back?
Yes, some writing. I can't remember what it is, but it has.
No, it's just a single word, which looks as if it's either Dutch or German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I sold my second copy on eBay last week. It made a fair price. But Upu Stamps have got one for sale for hundreds of pounds. So whoever got my one on eBay did well.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
On the Darlat manuscript cancel, it was also being used as an arrival mark. I've got an incoming letter to Darlat with a Kuching postmark, which has the Darlat arrival mark. If you look in the Sarawak Journal, shortly after the 1947, one of the very early ones, you will find that I think you'll find there's a suggestion that the Darlat manuscript cancel was becoming desirable. The postmaster could possibly make some money out of it, but it was being used as an arrival mark as well in order to produce more covers. It's exactly the same handwriting, but it was used also as an arrival.
Yeah.
Somewhere early in the journal. Did you notice, incidentally, Simon, that you were mentioning Pierce, the treasurer?
Yeah.
One of your covers that went out from Sarawak without a Sarawak stamp is addressed to a Pierce.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it's a relative of the treasurer. That one, yeah.
Hang on, that's interesting.
You've been able to check if Charles Pierce is a relative of W. Pierce.
It might well be, because they were getting the Gazette probably then.
Yes.
It's a very good point. Well made. I hadn't thought about it.
I happen to have been looking at something the other day with Treasurer Pierce, and when I saw that, as you put it up before you on to mention Pierce again, I thought I actually got Bill's Rogers officers out and double checked the spelling of Pierce.
Yeah, no, it's a very unusual spelling. So almost certainly it would be a relative, a mother, a father, or someone. Yeah.
The other thing, Simon, is that appears to be a. Sorry, I'm having difficulty reading the date. Is it 86?
Yeah.
6th
of December 86.
Okay. Now, in which case, the eccentric might have been in use.
Yeah.
I just thought if it's in if it came from Pierce, the treasurer, he might have had access to the date stamp in the office, and therefore could have put that on as a sort of informal dispatch mark and handed it to somebody on a boat. But I think it's equally likely that for some reason he didn't put there wasn't a stamp to put on it, and he just popped it on the boat or in the bag or something.
That's rather nice. That's rather nice, though, isn't it?
Oh, that's a lovely one.
And again, postal history. History is as important as the postal marks. You can find out who it is, why it was sent, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, I recognise that writing, so but everybody. So I think it's a ship's officer, but then that writing looks familiar. But of course, in those days, people all got taught to write the same, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And that's why for many, 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 many years, so many people thought a lot of the covers to Burdett Coots were from the first Raja, and some of them are actually from the second Raja.
Yeah.
Who continued correspondence with her.
Right.
Simon, there are a lot of these. How many can you actually account for this Sarawak stamp without Sarawak cover without Sarawak stamp roughly?
Without, I've got about 4 or 5.
Oh, quite common actually.
They're not that common.
Sorry.
Oh,
Is it a new discovery about this cover with Sarawak CDS but no stamp? Is it a new discovery, or was it? Are you the first one who discovered it?
Well, these ones. Which one are you talking about?
Oh, this Sarawak cover without Sarawak stamp. Was it this the first instance that you brought to attention of the philatelic community, or has it been discussed before?
I don't think I've ever discussed it before. I've been collecting them. I've been looking out for them when I see them. They're rather nice. They're difficult to find.
It was not mentioned in Forest Wood.
No.
Or neither in shipments publications.
No.
I'm not sure when in the Sarawak Journal was it mentioned before.
No.
Okay, congratulations.
There have been, as you know, there have been early postcards from Sarawak with straight settlement stamps on.
The one is well known. A few has it on straight settlements postcard with Sarawak CDS.
Yeah. But I never considered that as a mistake because I thought they were allowed. Because Sarawak didn't have postcards. I could have put 1 or 2 of those up. They're very, very scarce because they're sought after by straights collectors, and there's a couple of very big straights postcard collectors out there at the moment who are competing with each other to pay silly money for early straights postcards.
Simon, did you put this cover in your exhibition at the Post Stamp exhibition or this? How
No.
did the judge look at it?
No, I mean, I've got, there is nothing. If you have a look at my incoming cover display, I have some exceptionally rare covers coming into Sarawak, very early ones, 1845, 1857, and they're not in my display because they don't tell the story of Sarawak stamps. So I've had to take them out of my Grand Prix display to add other stuff in. I mean, I took one cover that is so scarce and very valuable out and put 1 page in of stamps that were virtually valueless. I have 1 page in that display of stamps showing tropicalization. And the judges like that page of tropicalization because it shows how difficult it is to collect Sarawak stamps. But no, all my incoming covers and all these sorts of covers, there's no room for them in that traditional display. No room at all. Which is
maybe Simon, straight settlement study group, Malayan study group, because they focus is actually can be considered as straight settlement items already. If you make a connection with them, they may have few covered them which they didn't realize the reality of it.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion. Okay, thank you.
Regarding the Pierce cover, is there any possibility that could have been treated in Sarawak as on postal or on government service?
It could be. It could be. This is a wrapper, so it could have contained a Sarawak Gazette or Sarawak Government Gazette, but it's a newspaper wrapper.
Yeah.
Any more?
No, I don't think so. No.
Well,
Okay.
Simon, I'm sure people will be in touch with you by email with all sorts of things related to this. But can we thank you for, as always, a breathtaking display of things, many of which we've not been treated to before. And thank you for that. And we look forward to seeing more of these things in the future. But thank
Can
you.
I add
very much
my
for today.
thanks to
Yeah.
that,
Congratulations,
Simon?
Simon, from all RTPS.
Can I add my thanks, please?
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Okay.
John, what are you saying,
I'm
John?
trying to thank you, Simon, for
Thank you,
the
guys.
superb display and, yeah, as usual, you know, exemplary research. I mean, that's what really, I think, puts your displays in a special category, because we get a lot of the background to your items, and they often, as you said, the social history is often as interesting as the postal history. And may I add my congratulations and the congratulations of the Society to you having become a Vice President of the Royal. So when, if all goes well, when might you be President?
Well, God willing, if it all goes well and people stay in post for their allotted time, 4 years, so I'm the next president in 4 years' time.
Oh, right, absolutely. Well, we look forward to that.
I have
We look forward to surviving that
I
long.
have to say, God willing, if that happens, then the Sarawak Society is done very, very well over the years, because we would have had 4 presidents of the Royal once I'm in
membership.
Yeah.
4 members, really. My
Yeah.
goodness me.
Spooky.
Right. Well, remind me who the other 2 are, because we know about Peter.
There's Peter. Before that, Brian Trotter,
Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
and before that wasn't Commander. Is it Commander Burnett? No.
No.
Who is it? It's someone who was. Can't remember.
It'll be in the records. It will be in the records, Simon.
Okay. But no, we've been, in modern times we've done all right, haven't we?
Absolutely superb.
Was it
Yes, an
George South?
interesting. Yes.
Fun?
Was it George South?
Yeah, George South. That was it. Yeah.
Oh, really? All right.
But we for Little Society we've done pretty damn well in
Yes,
in-
indeed, yes.
Yeah,
luckily
absolutely.
of our areas. So yeah, no, it was very unexpected. Wasn't expected it at all. Great honour. And I had to come home and get permission from my wife, because it's an awful lot of work.
It is. You'll be having a lot of
Yeah.
travelling as well.
Yeah.
Yes, which I hasten to add is at one's own expense.
Yes, well, you have to sell a stamp or 2.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
and to all those in Kuching, Happy Mother's Day. I didn't notice any mothers present.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's to everybody.
And lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Right.
Okay, bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.
Okay. Okay.